Hello everyone and welcome. Today's tutorial I'll be taking you step by step through the process of making this adorable Isabella doll. Right now you can get her in 3 different sizes, 6x10, 8x12, and the mega hoop. Today I'll be doing the 8x12. So before we get started on anything, let's make sure we have everything we need. Okay, so here we have some of the basic stuff to get you started. We have a medium tearaway stabilizer, which you're going to need to hoop independently in the hoops that you have chosen for your design. Some painter's tape to help hold down some of the fabric of your design. And this is the stick that comes with your polyfill when it comes to stuffing your doll at the end. Okay, so now I'm going to show you my fabric choices and then we can get started. Okay everyone, here are my fabric choices, and if you couldn't already tell, yes, I am doing a Halloween theme. See, with this doll, because she's made out of fabric, she's so versatile. You can pretty much make her for any occasion. So I've chosen, well, my niece chose for me. She saw this doll and said she had to have it, and because we're so close to the holidays, she said, I want a Halloween themed doll, my 3-year-old niece. So I have chosen my fabrics for Halloween. And one other thing, when you do purchase the design, it comes with a PDF file that tells you how you cut out your fabric pieces, and it comes in centimeters. It's very easy to change it to inches because I know most of us, well, me, I like to cut with inches versus doing out the centimeters. So it's really easy to convert. All you got to do is, once you do convert it, and it's all these little decimal places, just round up or down to the nearest 1/4 inch, and you'll still have plenty of space. Okay, so our first step is we're going to hoop a piece of the medium weight tearaway stabilizer into our hoop. Alright, I've got my stabilizer hooped, and as you can see, it's the only thing in my hoop right now. I brought my hoop over to my machine, so now we're ready to go. Before we get started, I just wanted to make sure that you knew that your design has 9 different files, and each file is a step in the process in making your doll. And as you can tell, like with the first file that you bring up into your machine, it has 3 different colors. Those 3 different colors represent a step in each part of the design. So let's get started, and I will start by step 1, and I'll be taking you through the whole thing. Okay, first step complete. And if you notice, the first file says arms. So this step, we're going to be making the arms. And this is going to be the outermost edge of your design. And you're going to take your fabric, and this is going to be your placement line. Okay, here we have our fabric, and I have it placed just at the this first line right here. And I found it easier because these 2 pieces of fabric have to be right side together, which is fabric A and fabric B. I put them together outside of the hoop, just sandwiched them together, and then I placed them together down so that way I had them nice and even. Alright, our next step, and the next thing our machine is going to be doing, is going to be placing a tack down stitch, and that's basically to put the arm and the sleeve together. As you can see, the tack down stitch was done right below that first line. This is where you place your fabric. And so our next step, you're going to grab the top piece of fabric, this one right here, and you're going to bring it down. And you want to do a little bit of a push down. I push it down just so the fabric stays a little bit. And you're going to have it folded down like this, because your final step in this part of the design, it's going to do a tack down, and it's going to do it all the way around the edge. So this is where you want to make sure this is nice and flat down. Okay, I'm going to do my tack down stitch, and I'll be right back. Okay, tack down stitch done. You can see it went all the way around, just on the inside of your fabric. And your machine also probably told you you were done with this portion of the design, which you are. This is going to be either the front or the back of her arms. So now it's time to unhoop this. We're going to take this completely off the hoop. We're going to place a brand new piece of tearaway stabilizer in the hoop independently. And I'm going to cut away just outside these stitches on this part of the doll. Okay, removed the last step completely from my hoop, and I have rehooped another piece of tearaway stabilizer. This is the product of the first step. I still kept the stabilizer on the back, but this is what it should look like when you take it off the hoop and you cut away the extra fabric. So it's ready to go for the next step. So when you bring up your next design, it's going to have 4 different colors. That means it's 4 steps to this process. It's going to be the exact same as the first step in the process. It just added one more step, and that's to draw out the arms. So before you do that part, you're going to do the first 2 just like we did the first one. You're going to do the placement stitch, place the right facing fabrics together right at the line, tack down stitch, fold down the piece of fabric, and then from there, I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to show you what to do next. Okay, so we have this laid down flat, and now what you're going to do is grab the first one that you made, and you're going to place it face down right on top of the other one. You want to try to line up your fabrics right there. Kind of place it inside the line here. Okay, once you have it face down and lined up, then you're going to go and set your machine to do the next step, and it's going to trace out the arms. Okay, here we go. Isabella's starting to take shape. We've got her arms formed, and with this last stitch, what it did was it drew out the arms, and it basically welded the bottom piece and the top piece of the fabrics together. So now there's going to be a little pocket on the inside, so we can turn it right side out and stuff her arms. So what I'm going to do for my next step is I'm going to take everything off the hoop. I'm going to cut the extra fabric away from the arms, but I'm going to leave a minimum of 1/4 of an inch away from the stitching, so that way when you do turn the arm right side out, because it's going to take a little bit of love to get it right side out, but you want to make sure that the stitches don't come undone because you cut too close to the line and now the fabric's starting to fray. And also what you're going to want to do is take off the stabilizer. Okay, and here we have our arms. She's starting to take shape, y'all. Okay, you can see what I've done. I've cut and left a nice little space between the stitching and the edging of the fabric, so that way when I do turn it right side out, it should keep it nice and firm. Also, a little tip or trick is medium tearaway stabilizer is pretty thick, and you want to be careful when tearing it not to tear your stitches. So I found it, the easiest way to do it was I removed, after I cut both of these out first, just to look just like this with the stabilizer on it. And then I removed the stabilizer, I tore it from the outside, and once I did that, the inside just fell off. I don't know if that helps you guys, but it sure helped me. So what I'm going to do now is turn both these arms right side out, and then I'm going to stuff them, and then I'm going to show you what they look like, and then put it aside, and we're going to go on to our next step. Okay, and here we have our arms turned right side out, and I went ahead and stuffed them. That was a process. Okay, so our next step, we're going to be moving on, and we're going to be doing the legs and the shoes. Well, it's all one piece, but the next step is going to be the legs. So what we're going to need to do is hoop another piece of medium tearaway stabilizer, just like we did for the arms. And we're going to get started there. The process is pretty much the same as far as putting the legs together. You're going to do them in steps, and stop the machine and then make sure you put the other piece on top of the other. We're going to go by it step by step, but it's pretty much the same process as doing the arms. Okay, let's get started. Okay, the placement stitch is done. You really can't see it because I did it in white, because my fabric is going to be dark, so I wanted you to be able to see the tack down stitch. So since I can see it, I'm gonna put my fabric, lay it down. Isn't this the cutest fabric? Black and orange pinstripe. Okay, so now I'm gonna do the tack down stitch. Okay, the tack down stitch is complete. It's the one that goes all the way around in a rectangle, but I went ahead and did the next stitch, which is the placement stitch for the shoes. This is where you're going to paste your other piece of fabric. Oh, and just in case I didn't mention before, the fabric that you do put down here, you want to make sure it is right side up, as well as your next set for the shoes. You want to make sure this is right side up as well. So I'm going to place my black piece of fabric down for the shoes, and then I'm going to tack it down. Okay, the fabric is tacked down, and you can see from, I did the white on the black so you can see the outline. The next step, what you're going to do before the last stitch is done, you're going to cut away just some of the fabric, not all. So what you're going to do is you want to cut across the top here, and then you want to cut along just this inner circle here. So you're going to leave basically this outside piece. Okay? All right, I'm going to cut it, and then I'll show you what I mean. As you can see, I cut away just the top here, and then just around this middle side right there. And this is what it should look like before you move on to the last step of this portion of the design. Okay, the last stitch in this sequence is complete, and it was actually a finishing stitch. And as you can see, it went around the top of the shoe and around where the ankle would probably be. This is so it's got a nice finish, and you can see the little shoe holes. So now we're going to move on to the next step, which is legs B, and it's going to start just like you did with the arms. It's going to do the same process. You want to hoop another piece of stabilizer, and you're going to go through the same process putting this stuff together, but it's going to have an extra step on this next part of the design. It's going to add the legs, kind of like when we had that extra step with the arms. So before you do the legs, you're going to flip this original one on top and then do your legs. So let me get this out of the hoop, rehoop another one, and I'll be back. Okay, I went ahead and hooped a new piece of stabilizer, and I did the first step in legs B, which is the placement stitch. And I'm going to take my legs piece of fabric, right side up, and put it right over that placement stitch. Okay, so the next step is going to be the tack down stitch that goes all the way around the corners, and then I'm going to also do the placement stitch for the shoes. Okay, the tack down stitch is complete all the way around, and I also did the placement stitch for the shoes, which you want to put your fabric right side up over that, and that's where your next stitch is going to do the tack down stitch, just like what we just did. Okay, as you can see, I jumped ahead a few steps because I already showed you the process, and it's pretty much the same. After the tack down stitch, I cut out the fabric from the top and on the inside, and then I did the finishing stitch. Our last step in the process for the legs is the same exact like we did for the arms. You're going to take this first piece that we did, you're going to flip it over, and you're going to place it right on top of your last one. And then this last stitch is going to do the legs just like it did for the arms. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that out, remove it from the hoop, cut away from the legs, and then I'll show you the finished product like I did the arms. Okay guys, we now have 2 legs and 2 arms, and this process doing the legs was the same as we did with the arms. I removed them from the hoop, I separated them, cut around the stitching, leaving about almost 1/4 of an inch, took off all the stabilizer carefully, and I flipped them right side out and I stuffed them. So now they are ready to go. So we're going to head over to the machine and do our next process, and that is the hair and the collar. Okay, I'm back at my machine, and I hooped another piece of stabilizer, and I went ahead and did the first step, which is the placement stitches for the collar. And now what you want to do is grab your piece of fabric that was labeled for the collar, and you're going to want to fold it, because it comes like this. You're going to want to fold it in half, right sides together. And once you have the right sides together, you want to place them over your placement stitch, but you want to make sure that the fold is at the bottom here, and then the open is at the top. Okay, placement stitch is complete. Now before you start the next process, you want to make sure that this fabric is out of the way. And by doing this, you're going to take your painter's tape and secure the fabric up out of the way. Let's do one more piece right here, just so I make sure that you don't want the fabric getting in the way of your next stitch. Okay, so this is out of the way, and now I'm going to do my placement stitch for the hair, which is going to show up right down here. Okay, placement stitch is done, and now what you want to do is you want to take a piece of fleece, and you're going to put it right there, and you're going to cover the placement stitch, That one's going to go down first, and then your fabric for the hair is going to go right on top of that piece right there. And basically you add the fleece, it kind of adds a little poof or bulk to the hair, so when the decorative stitches get put on, it kind of makes them pop a little bit more. Okay, so I'm gonna do our net stitch and I'll be right back. Okay, tack down stitch is complete, and I also went ahead and did the decorative stitch for around the hair. And now before the last step in this embroidery design, you're going to take another piece of the hair fabric, wrong side up, right side down, and place it over the last one. Because kind of like with the legs and the arms, it's going to do another tack down stitch, and then we're going to remove it from the hoop, and we're going to cut away any excess fabric and separate everything and flip them right side out. So let me get that started. Okay, and here we have it. I cut everything out and turned it right side out. We have 2 little hair pieces and 2 collar pieces. Okay, now on to our next step. Okay, now we're in the next step of the project. What I did was I put a fresh piece of stabilizer on my hoop, put it into my machine, and I did the first step of the next stitch, which was, it should be labeled back. It did a placement stitch, and now you're going to take fabrics H and I, which is a hair piece and a body piece. And I already put it together kind of like what I did the last time. I lined them up. You want right sides together. And I put the hair on the bottom and the back piece on the top. And now I'm going to do the tack down stitch. Okay, tack down stitch complete right there. And after this process, what you're going to want to do is take everything off the hoop, and you're going to lay this out flat just like this. And if you have an iron available, you might want to iron it down so it leaves a nice crisp clean line. And then we're going to move on to the next step, which is the body. We're almost there, guys. She's going to come together. All right, I've moved on to the next step, and I have placed a fresh piece of stabilizer in my hoop, attached it to my machine, and I did the first 2 stitches, which was basically a placement stitch for the body, which it went all the way around like a keyhole, and then it did a placement stitch around the bottom half, and that's the body. So you want to grab fabric J, which is the lower half of the body, and you want to place it face up right at that stitch line, and then it's going to do a tack down stitch on this. Okay, the tack down stitch is complete, went all the way around the bottom half of the body, and then I also did the next stitch, which is a placement stitch that goes right across here, and that's for your collar. So you want to grab your collar pieces, put them aside, and before you place them, you want to measure the distance between the neck, which for me is about 4 inches. So right at 2 inches, I'm going to mark right there. And you want to place your collars with the curved side down at the placement stitch. right there. Make sure they're touching each other. And then we're going to do our next stitch, which will tack down these. Okay, tack down stitch is done, and it's also going to serve as a placement stitch for your next piece of fabric. What you want to do is grab your skin color fabric, and you're going to want to put it right side facing down, and you're going to want to place it over the collar, pretty much right where you put the collar. You put that there, and then your next stitch is going to tack it down. Okay, the tack down stitch is already done. Went right across the top of both the back, the collars, and the top of the skin. So what you want to do now is you want to take this top fabric and you want to pull it up. Try to go nice and taut, and it's going to reveal the collars at the bottom and the body. So your next stitch is going to do a tack down stitch over the head. So it's going to tack this fabric down to the stabilizer. Okay, I went ahead and did the next two stitches, which was basically first it did the tack down stitch so it could tack down your skin piece of fabric, and then it also did the placement stitch right there for your next piece of fabric, which is going to be your L fabric. It was labeled L, and it's for hair. So you're going to take your hair piece of fabric and you're going to lay it on top of the placement stitch, and you're going to do your next stitch, which is your tack down. Okay, tack down stitch complete, went all the way around. Now what you want to do is take your nice sharp applique scissors, and you're just going to cut the front hairline, because your next stitch is going to do a finishing stitch right over the front of the hairline. Alright, she's really starting to come together. I went ahead and did the next 3 stitches, which was the finishing stitch on the hairline, the lips, the eyelashes, and the placement stitch, which comes with the eyelashes, for your little hair pieces that we made earlier. What you're going to do is you are going to take these hair pieces and place them almost covering her eyes. Place them down like this and find the placement stitch. Okay, and then you're going to want to put painter's tape this way and this way to secure them before it does the tack down stitch. Okay, tack down stitch is complete. I made sure that the decorative side was down, and I placed them almost to where the bottom of the circle before the long tubing starts right there, right on that placement stitch. So now it's a nice round circle and it kind of completes it. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is another placement stitch, because we're going to start adding arms and legs. Okay, placement stitches are done. I did the placement stitch in white because I have dark fabric and I really want to be able to see where I'm going to be putting my arms and legs so they're in a really good position. And you're going to use painter's tape to secure them. So you're going to want to grab your arms first, and then you kind of want to crisscross them like this with the curve going inside. So curve down on both sides. So I'm going to take this first arm, find my first placement stitch, which is right around the collar area, and I'm going to take a piece of painter's tape that I've already secured. I've already taken off. Secure the first arm. Actually, want to bring it down a bit because you want them inside the body. You want to make sure from the bottom line here that they are inside. I think I put a little bit too much stuffing in this one, so I'm going to take some out. Okay. All right. Here we go. Curl her up a little bit. All right. Good placement inside the body on the stitching. All right. Next one. I'm going to grab, well, first let me secure this down so it stays in place. All right. I'm going to grab my next arm, place it over this one, crisscross. Remember, angled down. It's going to be right there. I'll take my painter's tape. Don't worry about going over the line with the painter's tape because the painter's tape is kind of like tearaway stabilizer. It'll just come right off. There we go. I'm going to secure this one down over here because I want to make sure they stay. And then I'm going to take another piece of tape and put it across here. I really want to make sure these guys stay for this next portion. I'm going to do another piece of tape here. It's going to require a lot of tape because you want to make sure that these guys stay in place, because the next stitch after placing all the arms and legs is the tack down stitch to make sure that the arms and legs are secure. So I'm going to go ahead and place the feet, and I will be right back. Alright guys, we're almost done. Now it's time for the tricky part, to finish up and making our doll whole. What you want to do is, first you want to make sure that the arms and legs are inside the body placement area. That's very important. Okay, once you've made sure of that, then you're going to grab the piece you did earlier where you merged the back and the hair together. You're going to place that with the hair part face down on top of your entire design. And now it's going to do a tack down stitch of the entire body. So basically it's gonna close the doll up. So we want to make sure that it's nice and pressed down. This one you might have to assist it a little to make sure that the stitching grabs all of your fabric. All right, I'm going to get this stitch done and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, and here we have it. She is done all the way around, and it left a little space right in here so that way you can turn her right side out. So that is what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to remove everything from the hoop. I'm going to cut all the way around the stitch line, and I'm going to turn her right side out. The big reveal, guys. Okay, here she is, all done and ready for Halloween. I went ahead and finished the last steps, which I removed her from the hoop. I trimmed away all the excess fabric, turned her right side out, then I stuffed her, and then I finished it off with the ladder stitch on the side. I think she turned out so cute. I know this was a long process, guys, and it was well worth it. And if you stick with me just a little bit longer, I'm going to show you how to do the skirt for her. Okay guys, here we're going to start on the skirt. What you're going to need is another piece of fabric that matches her body. And for my doll size, I needed the 100 centimeter by 14 centimeter, which roughly translate to 40 inches by 5.5 inches. And you're also going to need a piece of elastic, and I've chosen the 1/8 inch elastic. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to open it up, and you're going to do a double fold, and you're going to fold it in like that, and then you're going to sew towards the bottom, because you're going to want to put the elastic across the top, well, inside the top. Okay, I have finished sewing the entire length and both sides. What I did was I did a double fold, and I found it easier just to take it to your ironing board and do a double fold and iron it down. That way it holds the creasing. You could just run it through the machine, no problem. And then I took the elastic and I measured around the doll's belly, and then I cut about 4 inches past it. So what you want to do now is take a safety pin, because I find it easier. Place it in the end of the elastic, close it, and then on the top side, that's why you wanted to sew towards the bottom, you want to push the safety pin and the elastic all the way through. Okay, and now the skirt is starting to take form. I pushed it all the way through, and I also put another safety pin on the other side. When pushing it through, I wouldn't lose any of the progress I made. So in order to finish this, what you're going to do is scrunch her up nice and tight, and then you're going to put the right sides together like that, and then you're just gonna sew right on the end there, about, let's say, give it a standard 1/4 inch, and then you'll flip it like this, and you have a skirt for your doll. So let me get it sewing. I'll put it on my Isabella doll, and then you'll see what it looks like. Okay, here she is. She's all done and ready for Halloween. I've got her skirt put on her. She's stuffed, and she is ready to go to her forever home. Thank you guys for watching this tutorial. I hope I was very informative for you and you were able to follow me through the process. I know it was pretty long, but as you can see, it's well worth it in the end, and I hope you guys have a lot of fun putting her together. I know I did, and look forward to seeing to all your dolls. Thank you.